Yeah. Our first guest tonight is an award-winning professor in the BYU English department who will retire on the 31st at the end of the year after 49 years in education. In addition to teacher, he's an author, a presenter, a public speaker, former high school football coach, and he was an offensive lineman on LaVell Edwards' first teams at BYU. It is a pleasure to welcome Chris Crowe to the Wise Guys. Good evening.
Good to be here. Thank you.
It's great having you here. Let's jump right to the big question. You lined up at 6'3", 230. Your peak weight at 239. So tell me the difference between today's offensive lineman, like 6'8" and 315-pound Andrew Gentry, who'll be sitting in that seat next week.
You'll need two seats for you.
Compare that with the lineman of back in your day.
So I remember my freshman year at BYU, one of the big things that Coach Edwards did was started powerlifting, because the thinking before that was you get muscle bound and you can't be athletic. And Greg Shepard started that up, and the bigger, stronger, faster stuff. But in those days, a guy at 250 was about as big as they could be and still be mobile. Some were around 260, but that was about it. Guys bigger than that were just big lumps of fat.
Yeah.
They just couldn't move. So I was still undersized at 230. It's hard for me to gain weight and keep it up. And I was a member of the team. I backed up Brad Oates my last 2 years.
Oh, man.
So,
legend Brad Oates,
yeah.
right? One of the best.
Hey, Blaine backed up a few legends, too. You guys got a lot in common.
Steve Young, Jim McMahon, just to name a few, Robbie Bosco. But you did play at the same high school as John Tait, legendary offensive.
Yeah.
At one time, the highest paid offensive lineman in the National Football League, and a big-time player with the Bears and with the Chiefs. Few years apart, you and John were a few years apart, played in very different bodies.
Yep, very different.
So are you, I mean, I look at a guy like John Tait, and he's as big as they are now. Like, he could play with that same body now. Are you amazed at how much bigger and faster they've gotten in today's game?
It is amazing when you think about that, and how big can you become, and your joints still not give out when you have that much force in collisions. But I think for BYU, John was a good example of that growth in 2 or 3 decades of how you went from guys like me, who were kind of lucky to be on the team, to studs like John, who came in pushing 300 pounds and being mobile and no body fat and stuff like that. The academic level, too, was, I tell my kids that I got a 21 on the ACT because that was a perfect score back then.
Really?
Oh, and then, is 36 the perfect score now?
I think 36 was back then, too.
But 21 was perfect enough.
As far as your students know, 21 was a perfect score.
Yes.
But I think physically, academically, in almost every single way, these kids in the last decade and a half have just been off the charts. Like this McCabe Madsen kid. Yeah. I can't believe he could be a decathlete. I think he can throw like he can and run.
4.0 student.
Yeah.
He's crazy fast, and the combination of speed and strength and explosiveness. Think about that. He could go compete with the sprinters, and he's winning the state championship in the disc and the shot in California.
Yeah.
And he's got the guts to stand up and sing a solo at church.
Right.
I
think McKay's a Renaissance man. He really is.
We're going to see him in a couple years. Your experience, the game day experience as a player back in the 70s compared to the game day experience today, what's the difference?
Well, the whole experience, I mean, I was hungry all the time. There's never enough food for us. In my freshman year in the Cannon Center, we got a serving and a half. That was all we could have. The extra half was because we're on the team. So we would beg for extra stuff, and they just couldn't give it to us. And we were hungry all the time. Coach Edwards started a kind of a Friday night burger thing at the hotel that got us together. And he actually got us starting in the hotel at night before games just to get away from things and focus. And the game day stuff, I think in the morning you'd get up, and depending on what time the game started, you go to the stadium, warmed up, get dressed, warmed up. I don't know if it's changed that much. There's a lot more stuff to see now, the technical ability to record stuff and break down film. We had 16 millimeter black and white film. It wasn't even video. So we didn't have the opportunity to really look at the fine-tuned.
There wasn't an iPad where you could just look at the play that just happened.
When a coach used to say, I got to go look at the tape, he was actually going to go look at a tape.
Yeah,
right?
Literally, yeah.
It wasn't digital video that he was running back and forth to see.
Is the pressure the same? Is the pressure to win the same for the guys in the helmets, do you think, today as it was then?
I would think, given what they've invested personally in that to be the athlete they are and the student they are, it's a lot higher stakes. I mean, there were some guys, probably there are still on every team, some guys who maybe they're lucky to be there. I mean, every week I felt I was lucky to be there, but I think some guys academically maybe just squeaked by, or physically they weren't quite there. But I think BYU, by and large, these guys they have are just, they're all in. They've been all in for 5 or 6 years. It's not just the last couple of years.
Yeah. Former BYU offensive lineman and current English professor Chris Crowe is on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus. Supplies plus support by Eddie, HR and payroll software built for small businesses, and by Mountain America Credit Union, helping people achieve their dreams for over 80 years. We're grateful to our sponsors. And Wise Guys is distributed by the Deseret News. Considering where we are today with the Big 12, the big stadium, BYU TV, mass media access, what pride do you feel for being one of the pioneers that kind of put this thing together and started it all with LaVell, who built this thing from the ground up at that time?
That's where I feel lucky, right? Being able to be here. I only had 2 offers, University of Arizona and BYU, and I wasn't a member of the church when I was being recruited, and I chose BYU because they're so horrible. I thought at least I have a chance to play when I get up there. And then the recruiting trip was great too, because we were from the desert and you come up here and see these mountains. How could you not want to be here? And LaVell was, just getting started. I mean, and so he was an easygoing, good salesman. But I think when I look back at the 74 team, especially, we just had our 50th anniversary last season.
Yeah.
I think we had like 21 guys go get drafted in the NFL off that squad. Mm-hmm. And the passing game launched, all those kinds of things. It really came together in 74. 75 was my senior year, was kind of a bumpy season. Gifford didn't start the season as a starter, but then he picked up after the ASU game, I think. And ASU was 12-0 that season. They were 2 in the country by the time the season ended.
Yeah.
But I think that we, the team, not me, but the team, the coaches, we kind of figured out some stuff that made it work. And I know that LaVell listened to our group leaders. He wanted to hear what the players were thinking, what we were saying. And so we have these group meetings, and they'd go meet with him, and he'd listen. And the other thing I remember that I was telling Dave this earlier, I grew up in Tempe. Frank Kush was the coach at ASU, where he was just brutal. I mean, he was just a really tough coach. Yeah. Lombardi times 2. And when those guys lost, because my friends played at ASU, they'd get beat up. They'd just get punished. The next practice was just punishment, just running and beating and running and beating. And so that 74 season, we start with lose, and then a tie. Nothing changed in practice except we need to focus on this. We didn't run extra sprints. We didn't get chewed out. We didn't have to run. We didn't have to do anything extra except focus on what we need to do better than we did last week. And that was a revelation to me. I thought coaches can be like that. They can be humane. They don't have to be this pound you in the face to get your attention. So I think that was something maybe I think LaVell figured out too on his own, that what kind of coach he wanted to be. And I think he wanted to be himself. And he wasn't afraid to do that. He had great staff around him too, so he could be.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because Kalani has this philosophy. He calls it love and learn, and we've talked a lot about it on our shows, because it's not, hey, love and learn. Hey, these are a bunch of lovers. They're weak. Who was it that came? Was it Chase Roberts that came on and told us about you can be a tough guy? But Kalani takes a lot of his stuff from LaVell, and I'm wondering if that's something he picked up, that love and learn, because it sounds like LaVell his whole philosophy was, listen, I'm not going to yell and scream. I'm going to still love you guys up, but here's what we're going to learn from what we did and get better. Is that something that you think permeated the program throughout?
I can see Bronco being that way too, right? Like, he loved his players and they knew it. I think that Coach Edwards found that he could be that kind of guy. That's not soft-hearted is not the right term, but a guy who loved his players obviously and openly, because he had staff who could hammer him. So Whittingham was tough. When he showed up, I think it was my sophomore year, we started running 200s after practice. 200 sprints.
Your sprints?
Yeah. And I thought, who is this guy? And he'd been for the Rams, and he was just tough and hard. And he wasn't afraid to grab you by the face mask and yell and stuff like that. And so I think Coach Edwards knew he had guys who could be the hammer. He didn't have to do that. He could be the face of the program, the guy who makes the big decisions, the guy who decides on personnel and coaches, that kind of stuff.
So you played a lot on special teams.
Yeah.
And you had a magical moment. And we want to talk about that late in the third quarter against Utah State in 1975. DJ is going to show us. And on the podcast, I just want you to envision the mountain of a man jumping up and blocking a punt against the Aggies. Here on the live stream, you can see it for yourself. All right. Before I ask you a question about it, you're staring at that picture of yourself. You're about 2 feet off the ground. You're smashing that punt. Do you sometimes look at that picture and go, was that me?
Yeah, I don't remember jumping that high. Maybe there was a hole in the ground or something I was jumping over, but it was a weird moment. You know, nobody blocked me, and you see Steve Dewey and Chuck Carlson, they're getting blocked, and it just opened up for me, and I just ran forward, didn't know if I was going to get the ball or not. But you know, back in those days, you couldn't advance a kick, you couldn't advance a fumble or block, or you couldn't advance a fumble, you could advance a block kick. And so Craig Thorpe had us run drills all the time in the offensive line. Don't be the idiot who tries to scoop and score and loses the ball, right?
Yeah.
When there's a ball on the ground, you cover it. And so we'd practice. He'd throw the ball and we'd have to cover it. And so when I block that kick, it's floating on the 2-yard line. Everybody's going downfield because momentum's that way, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The ball's run towards the goal line, and I see that ball, and my stupid training kicks in. Like this cover, I'm laying on the ball on the 2-yard line. Nobody's around me, and I'm just there.
Could you have just like leisurely picked
I
it up and walked in?
Easily.
Oh my goodness.
And I still have nightmares about pick up the ball, you know. And so I've showed that picture to my students and talked to them about the regret that comes with being stupid, making a mistake, not doing my best, or not being well prepared.
Hey, you blocked a kick, and they scored it 2 plays later.
And against the Aggies, who were pretty good back in those days.
They were decent.
So let's give yourself some credit there. That was a great athletic maneuver.
I could have had a touchdown.
Did the team score on the next play?
No, Todd Christian scored on 4th down.
Oh, wow.
We lost yard, so I had it on the 2. I think we were back on the 6 or 8 when Todd scored.
Todd scored.
On the 4th shot.
So Todd
nice
playing
job.
fullback back in those days.
And that's a picture that will live forever in the family lore.
That's very cool.
And that jump looks higher and higher every year.
That's right.
That's
the story
awesome.
gets better and better. Right?
Oh, that's fun stuff. We're visiting with BYU English professor and former offensive lineman Chris Crowe on the Wise Guys live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. You got a great recruiting trip story that Dave was sharing with me. So on your recruiting trip, head coach is Tommy Hudspeth, but he resigns the following morning. And on the following morning, you meet with LaVell Edwards for the first time. What were your first impressions? Like, you met LaVell the very first day he was a head coach.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts?
I think one of the first things I heard, and I was a non-member when I came for my recruiting visit, was he'd been a bishop, and I was like, "What is that? So what? You know, what's that?" But in that first meeting, he wasn't. I guess he was anti-Cush. You know, he wasn't anything like I thought of a head football coach is. He was open, welcoming, friendly. He didn't seem nervous at all, and I'm thinking, I guess he thought he was going to get fired. You know, he was always thinking he was going to get fired next year. But he made it easy to like not just BYU but him. And I think it's a guy I'd like to play for.
Did that close the deal? Because when you went on the trip, there was going to be a different head coach. And did that surprise you to find out the night before that there was a change?
I never even got to meet Hudspeth. So I think stuff must have been in motion, obviously, before we came. And we did see Kresimir Ćosić play that game that night.
Oh, wow. So you got to go watch. Yeah, that probably was something, right?
But I think talking to the guys, so, you know, they pair you with a team member and stuff. And those guys were elated at the change.
Were they?
And I thought, okay, well then, that's a good sign. If the players love this new guy, and are glad to see a change coming, then I'm maybe stepping into a good situation, then better than I thought it could have been.
Now, you met your wife, Elizabeth, in high school, and she's here with us tonight. It's good to see you there. She's a member of the church and very influential in your life. And you become a member of the church, which makes you a wise guy. One that gives you
and not only for coming on the show, you're honorary, but you are a wise guy. WISC, not just YS, guys.
So you mentioned you get baptized just before the start of fall camp, and there's some culture shock when you get here. Yeah. And so how was this new coach LaVell, the bishop, and all that stuff? What impact did that have on you in this brand new environment where you're going, I don't even know if I fit here?
Well, he was glad, obviously, when guys joined the church. He was always glad about that. And Floyd Johnson was always encouraging, although I joined before I ever met Floyd. One of the things I remember, though, is that they were really pushing to get my membership records fast because tuition was cheaper if you're a non-member.
Oh yeah.
And that was a kind of a big deal. I didn't even know. I didn't know anything about that. I'm like, I don't even know whether I don't know if I have a record. I don't know where you find that kind of stuff. So, but we finally got that worked out. And later I realized that's because it's saving the program 50%.
Yeah, because the football program is paying the cost of tuition, and so that's less that they had to pay because a member had a reduced tuition.
Yeah.
That is interesting. As you watch LaVell, because he recruits you on the first day as a head coach, and now you watch him and you're with him. Were you 4 years or 5 years with him?
4. I just played 4. Yeah.
4 years. So you're 4 years here with him. What did you notice about him during those 4 years that maybe would have tipped you off that, hey, this guy could be a Hall of Fame coach, or this guy might have the stadium name? Did you ever think that? But as you look back now to those 4 years, is there some characteristics about him that when you look back you go, oh, you know what? I noticed this and I noticed that, and that's why.
I don't know if we ever would have had the aspiration to think the stadium might be named after him or Hall of Fame, that kind of stuff, because BYU wasn't a football program at all, and so.
Right.
But I think for me, seeing him, the kind of man he was, that he could only be successful depending on the kind of kids he gets, right, that follow after that. But after I graduated, I went back down to Arizona to high school, and so when they would come down and play SU, I'd show up, and I'm thinking, he's not going to remember me, He'd see me, hey Chris, hey Elizabeth. He'd ask me about my parents because they never joined the church, and all of my life he remembers stuff. And so my first year in the faculty, I get a little card from him in my campus mailbox saying, hey, welcome to BYU. And the English department was getting kind of under fire in those days, and so he's made some kind of crack about the English department. If I ever needed to escape, come down to his office. But he didn't need to remember me, and he had no reason to remember me. But I think that's one of the things that made him special, is he was good to everybody.
That's awesome. No reason to remember me, but that's what he does.
Yeah.
That's just what he does. Our pleasure to have former BYU offensive lineman, special teams guru, and expert with the block punt against the Aggies, current English professor Chris Crowe on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus Eddie and Mountain America Credit Union. So looking back, and hindsight gives us a great view of things, how did those years of playing football and coaching football prepare you for a career in education?
Yeah. I think one of the things it taught me was to work hard, and hard work usually pays off at some point. Sorry.
There's some water right there.
There's water right
Okay. And so I wasn't afraid to work hard. And then, I teach high school. So I was teaching high school English, so 5 classes a day, and then 3:30 had to change clothes and run. I'm Coach Crowe, out there with the JV team and the freshman team, coaching track in the spring. And it was hard. It was busy. My wife can tell you. So after my first year, I started going to graduate school part-time at ASU. And so I'd get to school at 5 o'clock in the morning, because with some of the coaches, we worked out for a couple hours in the morning. And then I'd get home about 10, because I'd have classes at ASU from 7 to 10 after practice, 1 or 2 nights a week. And then after I got my master's, I started teaching at Mesa Community College part-time at night because we needed the money. So I would leave home about 4:45. I'd get home at 10. And my wife said I used to just fall into bed and didn't even speak to her. And but that kind of work ethic that I learned, I think from being a football player, having good coaches in high school too, and in college, really helped me as a university professor, because I knew what work really was like. I thought, I'm teaching 2 classes a semester instead of 5 a day.
Yeah.
It's a different world here, and that gives me time to write and do research and those kinds of things. And so I just kind of kept the pedal to the metal, although I had a lot more time at home. But I think it helped, that early training of just getting down and doing the job has helped me through my whole career.
You and I both played, and there's a part of sports that there's some real highs, like some thrills that you get from playing sports. And a block punt in a big game against a rivalry is a thrill that you always remember, right? And then you move on to real life. And David and I sort of moved on to real life. We didn't really move on to real life. Is this real life? So, but you move on to real life, and now you're teaching. Have you been able to find something in teaching and being a professor that provides you with a thrill that keeps you going, it kept you going this long at a high level?
Yeah. I've been, the last couple of days, I've been cleaning out the office. I don't have to do it all at once in December. And I have a drawer full of stuff from students over there, even high school students. And I think that making a connection with kids, and not every student, some students would profane my name, right? I'm the last guy they would give credit to for anything. But I still was in touch with a kid that I taught in high school named Mark Becker, we had a state championship basketball team, and he went to Arizona State. He later got a PhD in math, and he's taught all over the world, played European basketball. He reached out to me, 30 years later, and said, "Hey, man, you were the best teacher I ever had, not just to be high school, but all through graduate school." And I think that not that I looked for that from my students, but when that came, it still means a lot. I mean, it means an awful lot to see kids get it. The other high for me with teaching is the kid who doesn't want to be there, who hates everything about literature, writing, whatever it is I'm teaching, and somehow there's a breakthrough where I get to them, I find some way to get to them to say, this matters, it can matter to you if you just give it a shot.
Listen, if you're cleaning out your desk on June 2nd for a December 31st retirement, that tells me, Blaine, has he not mailed it in? Have you not mailed it in for the whole fall semester? That's what I heard. This guy's cashing in his chips.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, those lights will never come on in the office.
Yeah. When you left BYU Hawaii for the job here in Provo, Elizabeth made you promise that you would take her to a beach every year. So that was 33 years ago.
Yeah.
Have you taken her to 33 beaches?
Have I? Not 33 beach.
Maybe the same beach more than once.
The beach every year. Have you done it?
Which beach does she like to have you take her to in Hawaii?
I think our favorite is Temple Beach in Laie, and then walking down to Kahuku along the beach. That's maybe our favorite walk of all time.
Right there. Yeah.
And when we lived there, that would be the morning. I'd go run with a buddy, and we'd come back, and we'd kind of jog and walk and watch the sunrise every morning come out of the Pacific. It was a great way to live.
It's hard to leave that, isn't it?
Boy.
Are you a beach couple, even though you've been here in the Rocky Mountains for over 3 decades?
We are.
Yeah.
I mean, we came to, when I left BYU, I thought, I'll never come back to Utah. I don't want to come back to Utah. Not that I didn't like it, but I was ready to go back home into Arizona. And so coming here was an answer to prayer more than we didn't want to come. When they offered me the job, we were ready to say no. And we couldn't get the Lord to confirm that. So we came here kind of begrudgingly. Our kids were getting nosebleeds because it's so dry. You had to put lotion on your skin all the time. I didn't have a snow shovel, so I had a square nose.
Come on.
I mean, it was...
Toughen up.
I know.
That's the Arizona guy. Hey, don't let him flee. He grew up here, but lived in Las Vegas. How many years did you live in Vegas?
20.
And when he moved back up here, all I heard about was how freezing it was. And we're doing a game, it's 75 out. He's got a coat on. I'm like, dude, you're killing me with this. So he can't.
It's a different game down there, but I get the Arizona. There's sand, but not water there, right?
But we've come to love it. We've come to love Utah and the people and the place, the whole bit.
That's awesome.
Did you teach when Ann Cannon was in the English department at the time? So Ann Cannon is I loved her as an English teacher when I was coming through, and this is LaVell and Patty Edwards' daughter, Ann.
They were good friends.
She helped me fall in love with English and with literature. Yeah.
Her son, Jeff, we did study abroad in London for 6 months back in 2011. Jeff was one of our students. And we connected with him right away because obviously I knew his mom, but he's just a likable kid too. Not a kid anymore, he's a lawyer, but that just kind of renewed this association now with Ann and Patty and of course with Jeff.
Awesome.
Yeah, an amazing family. Ann wrote an article. She came and visited with us for several nights and wrote an article in the New Era about me, and it was called How to Be Number 2.
Oh, what a great story.
So yeah, and she just did such a great job with that. So we love Ann. We love the whole Edwards family.
She's a great writer.
Yeah.
She's a great writer.
Yeah.
The grand finale now with Chris Crowe. 5 questions presented by Strategy Square. Enhance your company's social media footprint with Chantal at strategysquare.co. These are 5 questions with a couple of bonus questions, rapid fire. So our show could go on all night, but our wives don't like it when we're here all night.
Yeah.
So let's keep it reasonable.
Okay.
Blaine's going to hit you with 5.
Here we go. First thing that comes to your mind. Okay. Your favorite sports movie.
Chariots of Fire.
I knew you were going to say Chariots of Fire because there's literature that is it's sports and literature, right?
It's got a great theme.
So Chariots of Fire. I picked that one for you, so I'm glad you confirmed that for me. Your favorite singer or band?
Oh, Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Yeah.
Oh, and Young. Throw him in there too.
Yeah. Whether he's there or not, I like that.
Yeah, that's a great combo.
Nash and Young. That's awesome.
Your favorite breakfast cereal?
Man, my wife's granola.
So do you homemade stuff?
Yeah.
Are you saying your wife makes you eat her granola, or that's the favorite cereal?
It's the favorite cereal.
Because you guys are leaving together. You arrived here together.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And yeah, no, that's okay. Granola's
there's
good.
nothing
I
wrong with
usually have
that.
to put it in some yogurt for me to love it. But okay, your favorite BYU moment, and it doesn't have to be on the football field. It could be any favorite BYU moment.
I think we didn't get a championship ring in '74 because BYU said, well, we've never gone to a bowl game before, and we were telling the coaches, but it's time to start, right?
You get rings. Let's
so
go.
we at the Christmas party for the game, before the week of the game, the offensive line composed a song called the 7 days of the Fiesta Bowl, whatever many days we were down there, and the refrain was "No conference rings."
Oh yeah.
And so about 15 years later, we had a reunion, and after the stuff, Coach Edwards says, "Okay, guys, now go back and get measured for rings. The Cougar Club's going to buy rings for all you guys."
Is that right?
And that was a great moment.
Yeah.
And not because of the thing, but because of the thought. That I'm sure LaVell lobbied for it, and that far past, people don't care about the past, and so he made him care. And I thought, wow, he's still Coach Edwards.
That's awesome. That's
That
a
is
good
great.
one. Okay, the last one is your favorite thing about teaching. I have a couple follow-ups. This one too. So your favorite thing about teaching?
I think, especially these last few years, giving my students more freedom to figure out how they want to approach a task or show they've learned something. When they really take hold and take ownership, I'm literally irrelevant. I sit in class and just marvel at what's happening in front of me, thinking I could just walk out right now and it wouldn't matter. They would just keep going.
Yeah.
And when that happens, that's the high. That's it. That's it.
That's when you found it, the
Yeah.
magic. So, what are you going to miss the most?
Man, I have great colleagues. I love the English department. It's a big one. We have 60-some faculty. I'll miss the students probably most of all. I won't miss grading papers, but I'll miss the interaction with students and faculty. Yeah.
Very good. We were going to ask you about your favorite beach, but you already told us it was Temple Beach. But is there another one anywhere in the world you'd rather go than Temple Beach? Like, not someplace in Bali or Fiji or someplace like that?
We went to Tonga on a research project I was working on, and these middle islands, Hapai Island group, there's an island called Lifuka that we stayed right on the northern end, and it was maybe 100 yards from beach to beach, and crystal clear water, and the coral there was no dead coral. It was all living and vibrant, and all kinds of fish and all kinds of stuff, and no people. We had it to ourselves, and that was maybe one of the best. Yeah,
That's pretty
one of the
magical.
best, yeah.
Listen, now that you're retiring, you can go to the beach whenever you want.
Well, and you were supposed to take her to one a year, right?
What's this year's beach?
Yeah. Have you been this year yet?
Yeah, we have. Where'd we go? I forgot.
You can just shout.
Remember, I guess we just go back.
But I feel like when you're retired, you should at least you should double that effort and go to at least two a
I'm
year.
for it.
Maybe 2 beaches.
I know in
For
December.
like months at a time.
Yeah, we did a cruise in December after classes were over, and we probably saw 10 beaches down the Caribbean. So that was
Yes.
nice.
Awesome. Hey, it's a pleasure to have the Crows here with us. We commend you on your career.
Yeah,
Congratulations on your
congrats.
retirement.
That's awesome.
Remember, we've got a full season to go before you're officially done.
Better be good. I want to
So,
go on a high.
thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, guys.
And all you
Yeah, we
do.
appreciate it. And thanks for all of the years that you taught and helped kids there at the university.
My pleasure.
So.